Hi there, welcome back. Today we're talking astronomy, are we? The great George Lewis is in the house again. He hasn't been here for a while and he's got some updates. George, I'm handing over to you, mate. What's going on? Who are you? And how are you?
I'm really well, Danny. It's nice to see you again. It's been a while. I've been traveling and you've been super busy with all your amazing events and stuff. Well, astronomy, astrology, both of them. I mean, there's a lot going on. There always is. I think at the moment, the biggest thing really is the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. It's on the 0 point of Aries, which is the world axis. It's the beginning of the Aries uh, zodiac cycle. It hasn't been there for 12,000 years, that conjunction. And Saturn, I always like to share this with people who may not know astrology, but Saturn is at its weakest position in the zodiac in Aries. It's caught his detriment. And Saturn is structure. It's the old legal system. It's the old way of doing things. It's chronology. It's time. For example, Great Britain is a Saturn-ruled country because it's a Capricorn country. You're seeing really Saturn being deeply challenged collectively, civilizationally at the moment. So whether it's on a personal level, your old structure, your old way of doing things, the old ego, or on a collective level, the old institutions. I mean, I could go on and on about all these old institutions. I mean, the IRS is being rolled up and is being folded up into pieces. The Federal Reserve is all but gone. I mean, it has to play out. I mean, you name one institution that hasn't been untouched. Can't. And so, in some ways, I'm not saying we should ever sit back because we're co-creators, we're partakers in this amazing world. And it's up to us, the people. At the same time, cosmology, astrology really does tell you where the energies are. And the old Saturnian system cannot sustain itself. It is being totally alchemized, and a new system is being born.
It's an interesting time indeed because a lot of us humans, we forget that we are actually multi-dimensional beings. So we hear a story, we plug into the 3D, right? The old guard is coming down. You mentioned the IRS being rolled up. Is that true? We hope so because paying tax is illegal. It is illegal on so many levels. And, Saturnian, Satanism, Satan. A lot of people have, again, their different stories, their multi-stories. We've been told also by people like Elena Danan, who works very much to serve off-planet information to make sure it comes into our 3D as we're going up to fourth and fifth in our own spiritual ascension. Again, multi-layers, multi-stories, multi-different things going on. It is a delight to hear that the Saturnian structure, the black cube, the compression, the brutality of the people, the original architects of the dark system, not the original seeders, but the architects of trying to enslave the planet. That's a wonderful thing to hear that the old guard is coming out. And then, I hope that people then don't plug straight into another story that we're being told that Trump is the savior and here comes all the new stuff. Because if we keep pinning the
Mm.
3D, 4D story now onto a single human, I'm not sure that we're going to learn too much. What are your thoughts
No,
on that?
you're absolutely right. I mean, to be honest with you, from my humble perspective, you see, it's never really been about putting the energy onto an external personality, because to me, that's actually the inversion of what the Christed message is. I mean, I actually mentioned this the other day on the Lionsgate. The Christed message is finding the Christ within oneself. And actually, if you listen to Trump, when he talks about it, he always does talk about God being the top man. And he's just doing his archetypal job, in my mind. And it's messy. But the point is, it's about us, the people, stepping into that Aries energy. Because what is Aries? Saturn in Aries is a new sense of self-identity. I actually pulled up a card. Aries is the Emperor card, you see. And what it is, it's with Saturn, which is the world. We're creating a whole new individuation of self on this planet. It's self-mastery, it's self-sovereignty. And so when someone like, Trump, yeah, obviously hugely visible, one of the most visible personalities on our planet currently, he's just doing his archetypal job. It's for you and I and all of us individually to get out and roll our hands up, get creative, get into the garden, whatever it is you're doing in life. and staying in that self-masterful way, because then the outside external can't control you in the same way that it did before. We're releasing control of that old system. That old system simultaneously doesn't have the grip that it used to. Yes, the IRS is still there, but you're already seeing in places like Florida, Tennessee, other states, they're now getting rid of property taxes. They're starting to change the inheritance tax laws. It is coming in. Not fast enough, but it is coming. In that sense, that's where I'm positive. Not naive. It's a sense of, no, there really has been a trajectory away from the old system. All these people like ourselves having these conversations now, where 10, 15 years ago, many of us, I mean, I wasn't until 10 years ago. I mean, I was fully asleep before, say, 10 years ago, really. Didn't really understand what's going on. And of course, in 10 years' time, I'll have a much better understanding. That's part of the trajectory, isn't it, of enlightenment, but also an awakening. Is we're constantly peeling the artichoke to get to the heart. It's never static. We don't suddenly get there and we've arrived. It's like Trump. He's constantly doing his job, and he'll probably have good days and bad days. But most of all, none of us fully understand what's happening on a political level because it is highly complex. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't try and understand, but we mustn't judge it on a daily basis. I mean, for example, the Epstein files. It's horrendous in some ways when it first came out that he was saying, no, they're not going to be released and why, and we all jumped to conclusions, me included. But then you begin to realize with the Epstein files, it has to come out. The deep state's been trying to push the files as they were corrupted. Trump said no because it was connected to Russian collusion and things like that. So what did Trump do? He ordered the Department of Justice to get credible evidence, to get the unsealed grand jury exhibits from the investigation into sex trafficking and all that sort of stuff. And so it is real art of war, and it's not easy to understand, but we kind of have to trust it at the same time, but also keep very vigilant and keep on asking questions and keep demanding justice, demanding transparency and all those things, because those leaders represent us. They don't tell us what to do. That's the new earth, is those leaders are going to have a much closer connection to we the people, where in the past we were just enslaved by a governed class.
Yeah. It's interesting, talking about a governed class and so many different things. Like Gavin Newsom, I think, is a monstrous monstrosity and a filth monster. And when LA was burnt, for many different reasons, parts of LA were burnt to the ground, which we don't really hear about anymore. They like to sweep it under the carpet while they bring in the smart city, or they've destroyed evidence.
Yeah.
Whatever story, again, on a multi level. And you can tell pe who people are by their actions, and not so much their words, but by their actions. Well, that scumbag, as soon as LA was burnt, he's like, let's build LA back better. And I wanted to put my fist through the screen for every single animal that suffered, person that suffered, children and adults underground somewhere that will never come up to the surface, documents that were burnt to cover up other monsters. I mean, we know it's true, we know it's happening. There's so much bad behavior. And again, you see who someone is by their actions. And now, of course, he's campaigning to be president. It's like there's a reward system of the old guard. The worse things you do, the more reward that you get. And I think people forget that Nancy Pelosi, the reptilian looking chick with the big horse teeth and the bad hair, whatever. Yeah, it's good to have a little pop sometimes because it's true. And also when I do that, it calms me down a bit, George, to not say things I probably shouldn't. And anyway, so that's his auntie. And again, people got to look at the old guard, look at the structure, and look at who's who in the zoo in terms of who's in government, who's in military, who's running military, who are all the families connected, who are all the A-list actors, who's cousins of
Yeah.
uncles of, people are not still getting that. But do they really need to? At this stage, everything is kind of coming down. I get most concerned, George, when I see people believing everything they hear, every single thing they hear. Ozzy Osbourne, here's a good example. Ozzy Osbourne, bless his heart, died. And, a lot of people, myself included, were really, really, really touched and upset by that, because I've watched him for years. I was only watching him the other day, right before he died. And, people at the go, but isn't he satanic? Because they've read something a few times, it's gone in as truth. We've stopped questioning, or we have stopped questioning. We're just believing everyone. New people in the galactic space, they've been here 5 minutes. They think they know it all. Oh, here's the great Dr. So and so. Let's follow her. That nut job came out of nowhere. but because she's got a PhD, that's all. And it's just so insane. And people are like, who's Alex Collier? I'm like, who's Alex Collier? You banana brain. Oh my God. Because I went on, he interviewed me the other day because, we've got a very long history, me and Alex. And I said to him, a lot of people don't know our history, Alex. There's a lot of new people just kind of popped
Yeah.
up. I want to be the galactic queen. How do I do it? I know. I'll slander Elena Danan. Let's get her out the way, and then let's all, you know what I mean? Yeah,
I
go
do,
on.
but it's interesting because I always feel at the end of the day the truth outs itself. Meaning, there are going to be younger people who are into it, they get keen, and some of them are great, but they're still naive because they're new to they're
We're
new to the
older.
subject matter. Whether and I know David Icke, has definitely felt similar in that sense to all these younger people now speaking his language and maybe not paying credit to him. But I think at the end of the day, you also see people new to the game, they do slip up. And so they may have their moment of fortune or fame, I should say. But will we see them in 5 years' time? And so for me, this is where to bear witness, to take a deep breath, the Alex Colliers, the David Ikes. I mean, these are masters of their wisdom and their contribution. And time does eventually reveal that. So in some ways, I just don't listen to the noise. I really don't.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a good, actually, mentioning David Icke. So I interviewed someone a couple of years ago, maybe less than that now, who survived satanic horror,
Mm.
beyond horror. And I know this lady's telling the truth. I know this lady has gone through awful, awful things, and she stood on television and she screamed to the wind, these things have happened to me. And I interviewed her, but she wouldn't come on my channel until I got rid of Sasha Stone, who she had an issue with. And she told me he's a so and so. And I'm like, but have you seen it? She's like, Danny, I know these people. And then she told me her horrible, horrific things about David Icke that she said she saw. And she said things about Prince Charles, King, whatever, King now, and that she'd witnessed. And I'm like, "Mm." And so I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, let her come on my channel, remove Sasha, just kept him on Rumble. And it bothered me that I'd let someone handle me, but I was trying to be kind, I was trying to be supportive, I was trying to bring, help her bring her story forward. Well, since then, she's given me a spanking on a couple of things I've said she doesn't like. And I'm supporting Tony Rodriguez, a space program soldier that was used as a bait soldier. And she commented on that and a couple of other things. I'm like, hold on a second, calm down. What's happening here? And so anyway, the other day, and I've never ever ever had a problem with Sasha Stone. He's a feisty bitch at times, just like me. And so we recorded yesterday. Hadn't seen him for a long time. He's doing great work. He's not everyone's cup of tea. Neither am I. Because sometimes we talk truth into the field in a direct manner that people don't like because it means they have to look at their ego and possibly they were wrong. Like we were all wrong about things. Go on, go ahead.
No, but I mean, this is true. I mean, to me, that's why I use the language of archetypes. I mean, Danny, I mean, I haven't, chatted with you for a while. It's very refreshing because it's fiery, it's very intense, it's very passionate, and it's very authentic in your expression of your waters, which are the emotions. Other people are going to be more cerebral. Now, Sasha, someone like him, he's highly cerebral and he's a wordsmith extraordinaire. And it's a different archetype. And so some people, Sally is going to respond well to Sasha, and then Bernard's going to respond well to you. To me, that is the basis of a civilization. Really, it's more about the information. I don't really get caught up in style personally. Now, of course, I'm attracted to certain styles and others. I mean, someone like Sasha, for example, I followed him for 10 years. He has really impressed me. Probably because I have a Mars in Gemini. That means I kind of like words. There's something I can learn from that great man. Doesn't mean I have to agree with him. David Icke's another great example. I have a slightly different understanding of what's happening, especially in the United States than Trump than Icke. And it doesn't make it me necessarily right on him wrong or vice versa. It's just there's a different nuance. And of course, I'm maybe coming from more of an artistic, spiritual, epiphanal perspective, perhaps, or not. And that's what makes it more interesting. So for me, I think maybe the learning curve here, which is what I'd like to share, is let's all take a deep breath. And as long as we're not doing that Saturnian dark stuff, you know, and we're contributing in our own unique ways, let Johnny be Johnny. And I think there's a lot of freedom in that.
Yeah, interesting. I just think it's really time for everyone because people have stopped self-advocating, and I'm concerned, that they've stopped advocating for themselves and having their own thoughts and bringing everything in here, bringing everything inside. When this woman said these dreadful things that she saw David Icke do, which of course I have no proof, someone else said, "Oh my God, Danny, she saw that remote viewing." And who knows whose skills in remote viewing. And if you saw something in remote viewing and now you're using that as a physical
Yeah,
story to put people off, it's like I was reading the book The Dream. You and I discussed that when it came out last year or the year before.
yeah,
And I stopped reading it because I was so sickened by what she told me. I'm like, just in case it's true, she's like, nobody gets high up unless they're in the system. That's not actually true. You can get fairly high up without being in the system. But at some point, I think the system will try and take you. I think the line at one point was like 20 million. There was the 20 million club. Once you'd hit 20 million financially, you were then going to be invited into upper echelons
yeah.
or not. So I don't know if that's true. But again, I listened to this woman because I really had such compassion for her. And now I question my reasoning for doing that. I let my heart override my gut. And I was annoyed at the time because she handled me, and I don't like being handled by anyone. Don't care who you are. I'm very anti-authority or being controlled, or that's why I don't have any partners in my conference, and nobody can put in a fake false speaker, that's a plant
Yeah.
because there's so many at lots of these conferences. There are a lot of them are plants, and we know that. So I just really want to urge people, like you were saying, it's time to go in. It really is that alchemization begins within. That no matter what you're hearing out there, stop listening to gossip and come here and feel what do you feel? Because people are stopping themselves, like coming to a GISIC, my conference, Galactic Spiritual Informers, let's say, because they're confused. Instead of
Mm,
letting themselves
mm.
make that growth step to connect with their soul family, to share their story, to be heard,
Yes.
robbing themselves of beautiful, awareness, and alchemization for themselves.
And the other thing is really to express something so vociferously externally in a public forum without being 100% to me is something I hope I would never do. Um, Human beings are full of foibles, including myself. I mean, every single channel I go on to, no one's perfect, and it'd be rather boring if someone was. I don't know. So for me, the Neptune-Saturn conjunction in Aries, I know I always bring it back to astrology, but I think that's why you have me on. The
Yeah.
Neptune-Saturn conjunction is self-mastery of our own spirituality, the individuation of our own spiritual understanding. It is really about going deep. God may be standing for generating, opening, and dissolving. Very Neptunian. Dissolving the inner journey, the Christed light within us. Christ didn't come to as a savior. He came to show us a different way. And that's where all the great mystics, and I know that triggers some Christians, but the real great mystics say quite similar stuff because it is a trajectory towards navigating the earthly realm with the physical and the metaphysical. And when we can do that, we sort of come into a greater understanding of reality and of our own ontology.
Mhm.
And so I think part of the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries at that 0 point degree is the self awareness of, my gosh, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and everyone's going to express it differently. And if someone wants to do it differently and they trigger you, then you have to reflect on yourself. Now, of course, there are other circumstances as things are. There's a war going on between two people. That's a whole separate thing. And I'm not speaking about specifics, but I think a lot of the time we give our energy away externally. That's the thing. It doesn't matter whether it's to the idea of a savior or whether it's to actually the tittle tattle of what's going on. Indeed, the Epstein files were giving too much energy away to stuff we don't fully know about. But we have to balance that with trying to understand what's going on and trying to use our hearts and our intuition to navigate a very mercurial and deceptive landscape because Saturn is in absolute radical fall. The old system of civilization is collapsing. That corresponds to the end of the age of Pisces and the birthing of the age of Aquarius, with which we are now in. And so that's a really powerful time for us to reconnect to who we truly are.
Are you working at Oxford or Cambridge University doing lectures? Because you should be.
You're very kind. Well, okay, now I'm going to respond to that in a very we the people way. And by the way, thank you for the compliment because I understand that's coming as a compliment.
Yes,
But
it is.
this is my naughtiness. No Harvard, no Oxford. That's yesterday's paradigm. That's old Saturn. Goodbye, Saturn. The new Saturn is this. This is again the emperor. You are the emperor. Just forget whether we're male or female. How do we step into that sovereign and you're the king or the queen of the ship? It's no more queen with handbag or sausage fingers atop. It's a real sense of, it's you are becoming the self-master through your own evolutionary process. So
Mm.
the new Oxfords and Cambridges and Harvards and Yales are going to be totally different. They're going to be based on relationships and different types of teaching. Because we're going to be mixing in with the spiritual, the homestead, the cooking. Some of it's home economics because, we've got to go back to naturopathic, away from allopathic. We don't want pharmaceuticals we don't want those poisons. So we're really having to rediscover a whole way of being. And that's the new educational system. I don't even like educational system. That's the new knowledge. It's a bit of remembrance, but it's also a bit of let's use technology to go forward in a way to create the new Atlantis, the new Lemuria on planet Earth, bring heaven to Earth, because that was always the point. We can make heaven on Earth.
Very, very true. And the more you leant forward there with a piece of hair coming down like a rubber professor. You know, there's something about we've always loved eccentrics people. We've always been, enchanted by people like you and the way that you speak. And yeah, it's definitely the whole educational system, the atrocity there from I don't mean over 200 years ago that nothing has changed in the classroom. We still expect our babies to sit down on their bums all day, and it's insane and it's wicked and it's cruel and it's shame on every educational governor, whatever you want to call yourself, shame on you for your rubbish rules and the decades of harm that has been done to
Yeah.
people. You mentioned people not waiting. We're so, oh, wait till the med beds come out, wait till the Epstein files are released, wait till Trump this and that. And it's like, wait till the arraignments, the sealed letters are going to be opened, and we're going to know. And oh, they've all been killed at Gitmo, and oh, Bitcoin's the coin. And aren't people tired yet? I mean, really, aren't we bloody tired? Waiting for what we were told
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we believe. So we hang on to that energy, and it's exhausting in the body because something behind it, people know it's not real. It's not true, or it's not coming on the time you want it to, or probably in the way you expect it to, because we've been programmed, and it's not our fault to look for the savior outside of ourselves. And like,
Yeah. You're spot on. I mean, we've all been indoctrinated to a greater or less extent to look for an external savior, and that's part of the new planetary alignments are supporting us in releasing that toxic program and starting to embody. Because here's the key thing. You see, it's interesting with education. We're going to learn to embody, aren't we? Before it was so intellectual at Oxford or Harvard. But now we're learning to embody. So what does that mean when lovely Dani shares that information? I have to bring that new information softly into the heart. And of course, ideally it comes in, through the ears, maybe even through the pineal gland, depending what the information is. And then it goes in and it has to feel its way into the heart. And that's where our intuition is so powerful. Here's the critical part is in order for the temple, that is the body, to really highly function, we have to cleanse the body. So part of the new education is how do you decalcify the pineal gland and the pituitary gland? Well, you have to get chloride out, you have to get fluoride out, chlorine out and fluoride out. You also have to get glyphosate out, especially in the United States and other parts of the world. And then also you have to negotiate your relationship with 5G. And so once you understand that and shifting spike proteins and different metals and toxins out of the body, then the body is going to start to operate closer to the God archetype of generating, of opening, of dissolving, of connection, of love. And that's part of the heart chakra. So you can already tell a lot of the educational system of the future is going to be like the ancient educational system of maybe Atlantis or early Tartaria or something like that, where we're actually not just dealing with mental information, we're actually dealing with real spiritual wisdom and how we integrate that. And the intuitive part of our nature is going to be very important in deciphering what works for us because the body always knows, and we have to reconnect with that knowledge.
Yeah, very, very true. You mentioned again a couple of times Epstein, and again the
Yes.
point of reference. And I've been reading here and there that apparently Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the old guard, of which it has been proven have committed heinous crimes and atrocities from so many whistleblowers. But my friend, my personal friend, Kathy O'Brien, who's speaking at the next GISIC conference, when you hear a story from someone who's actually experienced it firsthand, the dreadful, horrific
Mm.
information on those monsters in this book is unreal. And so, I mean, they're old. I mean, they're literally old.
Yeah.
And do you think with all the alignment and the Saturnian structure coming to an end, that this is actually true? Are we reading truth, do you think? That these
Yeah,
things
I'm
are
again, this is
lined up.
so what I'm going to say is a very much a personal opinion. I don't sit here with definitive intel from, special program operatives. I mean, obviously, I'm quite interested by listening to people I've connected with, and especially in the last 4 or 5 years, who seem to have pretty good intel. Notwithstanding that, this is just my own estimation. I really do believe that the cloning technology in the body doubles is highly sophisticated. This sort of stuff I've kind of known about for 20 years because I have an amazing imagination. I'm an artist. Yeah. So my brain, my heart, my soul can go that way quite easily. So what I'm trying to say is those famous characters, such as Mrs. Clinton and others, even George Soros, I don't believe we're seeing the original ones necessarily. I think whether the originals are still alive or in prison or dead, I oscillate a little bit because I don't know. I would like to believe they've all been dealt with, but I don't know that to be true. The point is, the public now's appetite in 2025 is much more awake. And this is what it's always for me been about as a people's evolution, a people's revolution of stepping into real understanding of manipulation. And so it doesn't really matter in some ways whether the original copy of Mrs. Clinton is alive or dead. Justice is going to be served, and I see that astrologically with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, but I also see it right now with the Saturn opposite the Mars. Saturn's in his fall, at his weakest part in Aries. Mars is in his weakest part in Libra, making an opposition. And then you've got Jupiter right now at his exaltation in Cancer, conjoined Venus. As we speak right today, and it will last for another few days, this beautiful conjunction of the two benefics of Jupiter and Venus in Cancer, right over the sun of the natal chart of the United States. That's quite interesting. So we are definitely seeing a lot behind the scenes of rebirthing, of renewal, and rediscovery of what the real, you know, constitutional fabric of America is about. And I think other countries are doing it in their own way too. I believe personally that Russia's going through a massive transformation. I mean, I've just been reading the whole series of Migre Anastasia. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, Vladimir Maigret is an incredible author because it is mystical and it shows. I mean, this book was banned for many years by many, many different governments because what does it do? It's Saturn in Aries and Neptune conjunction. It teaches us how to be utterly sovereign and to be divine magicians, if you like, practitioners, maybe is a better word for my Christian audience, of being connected to nature and to the animals and to the plant life, and to cleanse the pineal gland and to be able to live for hundreds of years because we're at one with nature. We're purely divine, organic, divine human beings as opposed to transhuman, homoborg genetic, poor copies, which is the obviously the artificial intelligence pathway. And so Migre offers a reminder of just how powerful we are and were and will be when we reconnect to nature.
So beautiful. You covered so many areas there. I'm going to come back to the Jupiter and Venus and the Saturn, Neptune, and Aries so we can dig a bit more into that. But first of all, I want to share two quick things with you. Number one, you mentioned about the cloning, the potential copied out, like they bumped Clinton off and put a new one in her place. Again, I've always been amazed, and I think this is why I'm in the role I'm in on a mission for
Yeah.
full whistleblowing disclosure in every single camp you can imagine. I always seem to know someone, first-hand experience
Yeah.
with them. I'm at a party or I'm working for them or whatever. And I met a doctor years ago, Dr. Annie. And when I met her, she was already very disabled. She believed she'd been injected with something which had made her really, really sick. But she told me that she was one of six doctors that were treating Hillary Clinton. And that woman had Parkinson's disease and other disorders within herself. And they said if she gets the president role, which she was going for at the time, we're going to say she's not fit for purpose. And those doctors were dispersed in different ways. And again, it
Wow.
was a first hand from her mouth to my ears, Dr. Annie. Secondly, I was at boot camp recently and I met this really cool girl. And she is a teacher of chemistry and science. And she worked at she the Russia, I always want to say Krakow, the Kremlin, the embassy at the Kremlin. She worked there, and she told me firsthand that there was a man that worked there, and he said, "Would you like to see underneath?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" He went, "Come with me, my pretty." He took her. He your
Wow.
face, so I should have left your face up. That was funny. Um, and he took her underneath the is it Red Square, Kremlin area?
Yeah.
And she's like, Danny, it was a massive city underneath, and
Yeah.
everything up top is everything down below. I mean, absolutely incredible. So something happens, to the government, whatever there, and the people, they're all going to be fine. The other thing she told me, because she's actually lived there for years, and she said that Putin is absolutely loved and adored. They call him, they say he's a bit of a thug. And again, people are going to go, yeah, and I heard this and I heard that. But guys, you're hearing what you've been told to hear. You've been programmed, it's conditioned, it is controlled. So my friend lived there, like I said. She said, I said, how the hell? Because of course in England they like to kill their old people here, and that's a fact. They don't let them have enough money to put their heating on, to light their fires. They don't care if our old people freeze to death. And that's been proven every year, hasn't it? Every year we lose old people in England because they're too cold to put heating on. They haven't got any money. I said, how the hell do the old people, how does anyone heat their apartment in Moscow? And he went, Putin pays the bills. He pays the bills for heating. He pays their gas bills. They're not going to run out of petrol somewhere in the freezing cold and freeze to death. I had never heard it in my life, and it must be shared.
No, no, I mean, this is great that you bring this up. I mean, I've had a Russian mentor for the last 4 years, and that certainly doesn't make me an expert by any stretch. But I have some pretty good understanding now through her and others about what's happening in Russia. And just suffice to say, understand the 180, the switcheroo, that of course, she left communist Russia, and up until 1990, Russia was in a very different situation. But we fast forward to 2025. And Russia is one of the leading forces for freedom and anti-Satanism in the world. It just is what it is. And
Yeah.
you can see it in the early Russian Tartarian flag of the slaying of the reptile. I mean, the symbolism for me is very powerful. And there are I follow, many of us do, these Tartarian channels, and I mean, I've been to parts of Siberia and parts of especially Uzbekistan and along the ancient Silk Route of Bukhara and Samarkand and Khiva, and you can see the ancient technology. I mean, it's all but gone, but you can tell. I mean, even in the Cathedral of Truro, where I am in Cornwall, England, I spoke to the proctor the other day, and even he admitted there was special sound and air technology being used in the 1880s, 1890s to support free energy. And I think Russia plays a very, very important role, which we in the West, and maybe this is why it's lovely that you and I can have this conversation today, let's open it up to the possibilities that actually we really have been told a lot of nonsense about Russia. And yes, it was co-opted by the communist criminal syndicate in 1917, funded by the criminal Khazarian bankers. Yes, and then the question is really who were the czars, and much of that's going to be rediscovered. Again, I don't sit here with my amazing oracle and being able to tell you, but my goodness me, in a few years' time, I'm going to learn a lot more than I do now, as we all will. And I think this is part of the destruction of the Babylonian system. And Russia has constantly played a role in that. Now it was subjugated and it was inverted during the communist era of 1917, as was China. And I think now Russia is offering a beacon of hope towards freedom, towards family. It funds families. It really supports families in a huge way. It's very different from it was 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, look, America's very different in some ways from what it was 40, 50 years ago. Baghdad was a very different city. It was one of the great centers, cradles of civilization in the 11th, 12th century Common Era. And then it became a hellhole, partly because of the endless war programming of the deep military, deep state. So at the end of the day, nothing stays the same forever. We have to be vigilant about that and understand that civilizations rise and fall, and one place could be at one time a great beacon of success, and then 100 years later it could be a hellhole of iniquity.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. We'll come to the aspects, the astrological aspects in a second, but again, just to kind of balance out some of the things you said there, I die laughing, and it also really irritates me when I see like people online, they're like, and now it's time for your galactic updates, like from my ass, because this person pretends to speak. They're not speaking to anybody. I guarantee it, and I can prove it. And I'm like, oh my God, you've got all these people listening to you. Let's get our galactic updates from the white hats. Anyway, and there's me bringing physical
I know.
spacecraft over a conference of 2,000 people, eyewitnesses, and the British media have tried to kill it, and the American media have tried to kill it. But people will listen to fake Muppets, the false light, and believe them. I want you to tell us, how can we break down, like Saturn's a planet, Neptune's a planet, Aries is a birth sign. How
Yes.
can those three elements be together right now and have influence? How does that actually work?
Okay, so if you look out on the elliptic of the night sky, basically it's cut up into 30 degrees. Of the 360 is cut up into 30 degrees, and each 30 degrees is a zodiac sign. So when we measure it on the 0 point of the what's called the spring equinox, which is the 0 1 degree angle of Aries, that's first 30 degrees is Aries. Then you go to Taurus, then you go to Gemini, Cancer, and so on and so forth. What you then have is the planets, and they do their rotations. So right now, in that sector, that 30-degree sector of Aries, right at the beginning, you have Saturn and Neptune conjoined. And that's a really powerful aspect. You have now Gemini. You have Uranus has just moved into Gemini. That's very important too. That makes a sextile, which is positive. That's a nice 60-degree angle. You see, in astrology, the challenges tend to be the squares and the oppositions. I'll give you an example. A lot of astrologers in the last year have been very anxious about the ingress of Uranus into Gemini. And the reason they've been anxious is because the last time Uranus was in Gemini was in 1941 when the United States entered the Second World War. And the time before that was in 1862 when we were in the heart of the Civil War. And the time before that was in the 1770s when we had the Revolutionary Wars against Great Britain. The difference this time round is the outer planets are making this beautiful harmonic, think music, music of the spheres, beautiful harmony. Pluto at 1 degree Aquarius, making a trine 120 degrees with Uranus in Gemini, making a sextile with the midpoint of Saturn and Neptune at 1 degree Aries. I know that's a lot of information, but that is a beautiful harmonic, much like a perfect fifth or a perfect fourth on the piano or on a musical instrument. In the past, the great wars, there were squares and oppositions. It was hard knocks. It was savage. This time, even if the war is somewhat kinetic, it is a peaceful evolutionary process towards the new system. And in that sense, I remain cautiously, actually, even more cautiously, I remain optimistic because I see this time round humanity is going to make the jump, is going to make the evolutionary leap because we're all doing it together. Because of the artificial intelligence of being able to speak on Zoom here, this information can be disseminated to more and more people. Where in the past, in the Second World War, the Civil War, we didn't have access to that form of sharing. And so it's good news. Of course, there's going to be hard stuff in the as we go through it. It's not going to be perfect. I mean, Lahaina, LA, as you mentioned, of course, Palestine and Gaza. It's horrendous. So we're not running over that, but at the same time, we haven't had a nuclear explosion go off, killing 2 or 3 million people on our planet, which was on the menu by the deep state since 2016. And in my belief, in my humble belief, those huge events have been largely scuppered. Do you remember many years ago, was it 3 or 4, I forget, when we saw that big ship in the Suez Canal stuck there?
Yes,
That
the evergreen.
the Evergreen, of course, the code name for Mrs. Clinton.
Yeah.
That's her security name with the Secret Service, and as is Renegade for Mr. Obama. I like symbols. I like reading that stuff. To me, that gives me a lot of information, and I think there was a lot of stuff that was scuppered and prevented. I remember hearing from many different sources, and this is more your wheelhouse than mine, that there was a planned massive explosion in Seattle, which was foiled by the good military some 4 or 5 years ago. And I don't know the details of it, but I sense, to be honest with you, here we are now in 2025. If the deep state had the amount of control that some of us still think they do, we would not be sitting here and talking. We would be in different forms of camps, FEMA or otherwise.
That's amazing, and it's very true, and it's a very well placed point, very much so. I at my last conference, when we brought in the spacecraft from the Galactic Federation of Worlds, it took ages for them to fly over the sea where we were all standing waiting for them. And I was cross because I'm thinking, I don't understand. They're just UFOs. I mean, they're not just, they're from the military aspect. Anyone every night can look up and you're going to see craft. They're just there all the time, every day. It's not difficult. But I need to prove that the good Earth military work with the good ETs from the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Anyway, it took a while, and I was complaining to Elena that like people are getting cold, it's stressful, why aren't they coming in? She's like, Dani, we don't, the Galactic Federation of Worlds are going to honor their agreement with the Earth military. It turned out, and I'm going to name the Air Force Base very soon, it turned out that a member of senior military didn't make his shift that night for whatever reason, and someone else came on board that wasn't read in. And so he tried to block allowing these two ships to come over, and rightly so, is doing his job. And it's just so beautiful. Again, there is evidence, and a ton of Air Force Base military personnel were given that day off.
Wow.
Even more, yes, yes, even more proof. So I will keep going and going and going and going until people,
Yeah.
I mean, the ignorant, I don't wish to convert them. I'm not here to convert. I'm here to share the truth to my
Yeah.
brothers and my sisters, part of my human family. But evidence is absolutely crucial. Physical evidence is crucial. And that's what I'm bringing. That's what I'm doing. And it's just wonderful that there's now another piece of new information on this. And it's just so great. It gives people so much hope. But, like you said, that the things that have been scuppered, the military, the intelligence, the good people inside all of these organizations, the ETs that will come down and change the trajectory of a missile. We're seeing it all of the time. And like you said, the deep state has grossly, magnificently lost its footing. And so we're seeing the
Yeah.
switcheroo, the fake, oh, it's terrible, it's scary. It's not. They're nothing.
And just also to add to that, you see, this is why I love the fact that what you have shared now, I can back up astrologically with Saturn in Aries because Saturn doesn't have the power. As I said at the beginning, he's at the weakest part of the zodiac. And when it's next to Saturn, sorry, when Saturn's next to Neptune, Neptune dissolves. It makes more spiritual. It's almost alchemical in the destruction of the physicality in order for a new Saturnian system to be born. And you also mentioned at the beginning, you know, we want to have a good Saturn. We need good foundations, but it has to start from anew. We can't build those foundations on old systems that have never served the people. They've been counter to the needs and desires of the people. And so we're going to be building fresh. And that's what the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries asks us to do.
Yeah, these trinities, these trines, are so interesting. Before the reptilian and grey ET civilizational kind of plan takeover was demolished and retracted, taken, removed, their setup was from Saturn beaming across to Betelgeuse, which we're told is a star that's gonna, but that's where the Orion
Yes.
mother of the hive was positioned, the supercomputer. So it went from Saturn to Betelgeuse to the moon.
Yes.
And that triangle again was
Yes.
infecting the planet. And it's interesting, Saturn, Neptune, and
Um, it, it's really I love the fact you brought that up. So another thing to look at the astrology, isn't it interesting that Saturn rotates a solar return, so does one rotation of our sun in 28 to 29 years, exactly the same as the moon, 28 to 29 days.
Mm,
There is another evidence for that Saturn Moon matrix, that artificial control of Chronos. Don't forget, Saturn is Chronos, chronology, time. And I, as someone who's very interested in the ancient Greek, is there two types of time. You've got Chronos, chronotic on the one hand, which is quantitative time, but you've also got Kairos, which is qualitative time. And once we delve into the qualitative time of the portal, the stargate, ourselves, through our body, through our temple, then we can collapse the old matrix Saturnian system. And I think that's partly what we're learning to do now.
absolutely. You mentioned 28 days. There should be 28 days a month for every single month,
Yeah.
but bollock
Yeah.
heads came along and they changed it, just like they changed the beautiful natural 432 hertz that the body responds to harmoniously to 440. And they think they're so far in the past that we'll never find out and never do anything about it. And of course we found out. And of course we are deleting them. They will be deleted. People like, let's say, Diddy, he will never, is wanting to be an icon, like a lot of these monsters want to be icons. In his mind, he was going to be an icon, a legend forever. Now he's only going to be remembered for sex trafficking and doing bad deeds and being a filthy bastard. And that's going to be his legacy. And a lot of people that wanted to be remembered for being so brilliant, they're going the same way. Let's bring this across to Jupiter and Venus. Now, what is happening there, and how does that energetic realm right now kind of affect all of us? What are we looking for?
It's really interesting also with I don't know whether I've shared this information on your channel before, but with the founding of the Republic of the United States on July 4th, 1776, it was not just by fluke that the Sun was conjoined Jupiter and Venus, which are the two benefics. Moreover, it wasn't just fluke that the Sun, Venus, and Jupiter were conjoined Sirius, the great star of our night sky, Sirius. That is a very, very potent energy. And even if people don't understand astronomy, astrology, they must understand that the language of the two benefics with Sirius star system A, the bright star, which is our binary sister star, that is potent energy on the whole notion of the American Republic and the rebuke of tyrannical monarchical order. And this time, right today, as we speak, Venus and Jupiter are conjoined at 14 degrees Cancer, right over the sun of the natal chart of the United States. Now, I've already talked about the Pluto return, so there are other times in the past, in the last few years, where we are seeing this renewal of the Republic. But certainly, this coming week or so, this coming month, is a big renewal because Jupiter's exalted in Cancer and is going to be there for another year over the natal sun of the birth chart of the United States. So, and now Russia's chart is also quite interesting. There's a lot of shift happening there. Now, the European Union's chart, wow, that's a whole other thing. You've got Pluto going over the moon, which is the people of the natal chart. The European Union probably only has another year or two left at the most, according to the astrology. I mean, it could even be done within the next 16 months.
Wow. Wow.
So, with Venus and Jupiter, that's the great benefic. So they offer, I mean, on a personal level, I'd say, because let's personalize it, because it's about our own individual journeys. Where is Cancer in your chart? If it's in your first house, that means Jupiter and Venus are going over your first house. There's a huge expansion of self-definition of how people perceive you. Now, with Jupiter in Cancer, could potentially put on a bit of weight and eat. Venus, you're probably going to have some wonderful love experience. If it's in the second house, it could be to do with resources, money. Third house is to do with siblings or something, and so it goes on. And that's why astrology is useful. So think about where Venus and Jupiter are triggering which part of your chart, because then you're going to see that's great beneficence. That's an abundance. That's a sense of more of a sensual connection with your partner or a new partner coming in. And then, of course, Uranus, the planet of innovation, is just left Cancer, is in just gone into Gemini. Just think where Gemini is in your chart. Uranus, unexpected, sudden new beginnings. The lightning bolt, the eccentricity. Donald Trump, love him or loathe him, he has Uranus conjunct the Sun, conjunct the North Node. He is the innovator, the bringer in of the new, the destroyer of the old. So think about where Uranus is triggering you in your chart and allow that newness coming in. Don't be frightened. Don't be too Saturnian. Allow the positive energies of Uranus to come in and allow you to transform.
Wonderful. Excuse me. A lot of people, who are coming in new into the information, that have been listening to the wrong people, and it's very confusing because there's a lot of detractors coming in, and just reporting on nonsense and taking other people's stories and their contacts, even using the same names. It's just ridiculous.
It's sad.
Um, I have some compassion for them because they're on a seeker's journey, the new people. And the quickest way for them to catch up, like when I mentioned the Orion, Saturn, and Moon trine, that was a literal machine that was affecting our planet,
Yeah.
and run by the reptilians and the greys, that some people have such a hard time accepting that those aspects are gone. They're not abducting like they were. They're not working with, well, some of the rules have popped off anyway now. So a lot of that has gone and it's been proven. But again, people just don't want to be wrong. They can't accept they're wrong. The ego gets in the way, and that's a learning lesson for them. But I would just say that I want everyone to recognize, if you want information, because some people will say to me, where's the video on blah, blah? How do I find this out? You go to Elena Danan's YouTube channel, Elena Danan, or mine, and you watch the many, many thousands of hours, if you can be bothered, or hundreds, on a subject you're interested in, because we label them all, and get a catch up, because people are getting information from, negative, false light sources. So I couldn't recommend Elena Danan higher enough with the real information, because she's a natural contactee that's physically going. She's not la-la-ing in her mind and meditation. Again, resources are important, and you're a very important resource. Now, are you still giving readings, astrology?
Yeah, no, I do. I love it. Yeah, I am, and I don't want to stop. I mean, it is a lot of work, but I really enjoy it because also it keeps me really on my game as far as an astrologer because it's precious. You're looking at someone's chart and they're coming to you for real advice, and one sees things, but it's like the four gates of speech. Number one, is it truthful? But number two is, can you say it kindly? Number three, is it necessary? And number four, is it the right time? So astrology is a wonderful language, and yeah, I love doing private readings. I do tarot, astrology, and I include some numerology and stuff, and in that, and intuitive readings. And I think really in relation to what you just said, as long as human beings are are using their ego in order to better themselves as far as get closer to God, to Source Creator, to understand the depths of this realm and how momentary it is. And I think in a way to have more of an inner journey, an inner standing, less external. We've been too external. I speak for myself in the past. It was too external. The journey in the last 4 or 5 years has definitely gone more within. And I think it doesn't necessarily make it easier, but it makes it more fulfilling. And I think it makes it more connected to source, to truth. And I'm less able to get blown off course because in a way I'm I'm ex I'm exerting my rights within polarity consciousness, meaning I'm not over here or there. I'm doing that beautiful dance in between. Do I get it right? No, but I'm conscious of that dance. So I that's what I say to people is, if the ego is if you're gonna define yourself through your belief system, you are on the wrong path. I do not have a fixed belief system. Now I have some pretty strong beliefs, sure, absolutely, and I share them, but it ain't fixed. I'll give you a really good example. 10 years ago, I was a staunch monarchist.
Got it. Yeah. Well, and you met the lady of them all, and I love that story. You were playing organ at your former boarding school, and where Prince William and Prince Harry went, and Princess Diana came and sat next to you. Just tell us again for those that never heard it. It's such a
Yeah, no, it was magic. I was there watching a rugby match with my dear friend, and the princes were playing, and well, Prince William was playing, and I'd already met Her Royal Highness Princess Diana a couple of times, and I'd been formally met her that day. And the headmaster said, George, because he knew I was a chorister and an organist, can you? And I'd come back to the school. I'd left the school, so I was a few years older than Prince William, and I'd gone back to watch. And he said, can you go in and check out the new organ? I'd love you to tell me what you think of the new organ as an organist. So I go in and I play it, and then Princess Diana comes in, and we sit there for about half an hour, and we just play the organ together and we chat. And of course, I'm a young man here, but the energy will never, never leave me. And I kind of describe it in slightly Palladian terms. She really did have a huge heart, and she was the people's princess. And I can always tell where people are at when I engage with them, whether they're British or American or anywhere. The people who kind of like Princess Diana have big hearts. I'm just going to leave it at that. And she, in a way, was very important to me because she reminded me, growing up in a Saturnian, strict British boarding school system, where I was pretty miserable, she reminded me of the potential of humanity. And she reminded me, she gave me hope, and she nourished me in a way that I could never really fully describe or understand. And of course, that was just a fleeting moment, but it was a very intimate, real moment, and I'm very blessed to have had it.
Yeah, yeah, you were and you are, and I'm sure she saw the beautiful light in you too. I did a church tour recently before my last conference here in England on May 10th, where we saw spacecraft, and it was amazing. And I took a group of people around the beautiful churches in Sussex. It's
Oh,
magical here. It is enchanted.
yeah.
And one of the buildings I took them in was the Eastbourne Town Hall,
Oh,
a
yeah.
massive,
My
beautiful.
father was at school there,
Good
Eastbourne.
heavens, in
Yeah.
Eastbourne. Everyone's got a connection to Eastbourne. It's crazy. And I was allowed permission to have a guide with my beautiful friends. The people that came on the tour with me. And we went into one room and we were looking at the mayor's gold scepter, and I put on the jewelry, the gold, the mayor's. It's all bollocks to me, but it's quite fun. And there was a photograph of Diana, a real beautiful photograph on the wall. And I said to everyone, "There's a photograph of Diana." So like everybody got up and took a pic. We didn't bother about the others. We were just like, "Oh, it's Diana." And again, in those times years ago when I was a nanny working for an aristocratic family, beautiful family, I loved them very much. And I looked after the baby, a little girl. She was 6 months old, and I had her for a year and a half. And during this time, I'm so me, always been me. And so they had older kids, and they said, "We'd like you to. We've never had a nanny hang out with us before." And I just we just got on well. I was just myself. And they said, we've never had a nanny eat in the dining room with us and the baby. Normally she eats with cook and butler in the kitchen. Trust me, this was only a few years ago. Or maybe 20, you know. Actually, it could be longer, you know. But anyway, here's the point. The lady of the house said to me, Danny, Princess Margaret is coming for the weekend. We would love you to dress baby up and have dinner with us in the evening. You know, again, impressing the point they'd never had a nanny close to any of their, entertaining events or whatever. They knew I could handle conversation. The baby would be beautiful and it would be a fun time. So anyway, she said, the only thing is you have to curtsy. And I'm like, no. She went, yes, of course you do. And then I said to her, are you telling me that if you're in the bathroom downstairs and you come out and Princess Margaret is walking past you, that you have to curtsy? And she said, of course I do. And I thought she was going to say, of course I don't. That's ridiculous. But she said, of course I do. And I'm like, I am so sorry. I am so honored that you are inviting me to have dinner, but I'm sorry, I can't do it. And I never did, and that was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Not that I'm, proud to push against the establishment. I think it's all bollocks. And I think that the rituals of bowing and curtsying and the different things we have to do for the lords and the ladies, it has kept such a divide. And a lot of the division or the divided, some of those thinkings, they put themselves in a Saturnian mindset. Some of them are definitely satanics, dominance and controlling. And it hasn't served them to separate themselves from the wheat and the chaff, which is, or the chaff, what do they call us, the cattle, the useless feeders, or
Mm.
people like that. Evil Harari Ferrari, what's his name? The little rat man, not Fauci, um, the little rat man, Harari Rari. I don't know. He was
Yeah. He wrote that book, The God on the God. Noah Harari.
Yeah, right, him. And he was Klaus Schwab's
Yeah.
mentor or something like that. And now
Yeah.
Schwab, because he's such an old man, he's been stepped down, but then they put other horror bags in place. I think it's Soros that's now like not being seen, but his son has come forward. And now these people believe they're going to do bigger and better than their parents did. I mean, and boy, have they got a four before coming to them because, and they're doing their damnedest now, but it is the dying beast, isn't it?
I mean, it's interesting because Mars in the tarot is represented by the tower, and this is the tower moment we're in, and it's been connecting either in opposition or now making a square with the world, and so we are seeing those two. Literally, the world is going through its tower moment, and those old systems, those old Saturnian systems, they can't really last. So we're seeing the last gasp of it. Doesn't matter whether it's the child of whoever. Um, the whole monarchical system. You see, I don't really get caught up in the individuals, in the individual stories. Even like of the Queen, it's not to me about the individuals. It's about the system itself. In the age of Aquarius, won't support old monarchical systems because once our consciousness goes to a certain level, those old systems are redundant.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very, very true. So it's really a time, excuse me, as we were saying, for people to really go inside, stop
Mm.
listening to gossip, stop believing everyone they hear, because it's so, so confusing. And all it does is it puts them into emotional paralysis.
Yeah,
Stop growing, they stop coming to a jisig, or they stop calling you to have a reading, or they stop themselves from growing because they're locked into group consciousness, which isn't helpful at
right.
this time of self valuation and self ascension. Tell us how people can get hold of you for sessions and connect to your incredible artwork, your beautiful, unbelievable paintings and artwork that you have created.
Thank you. Well, it's all on my website, georgehLewis.com, georgehLewis.com, and you can contact me through the website for personal readings. I have some rather fun prints of paintings I've done recently, and I've also got my academy to teaching astrology, tarot, and esoteric arts and stuff like that. I've got a new class starting in the autumn in October, so maybe people may want to come and find out about that.
Lovely, beautiful. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I love the way that we
Yeah.
traverse
Same.
universe and
It's
back
beautiful.
every time. Yeah, every time we get together. And, it's like with Sasha the other day, Sasha Stone, I was like, just like, wow, I need to sit with a friend, a mate who isn't attached to one singular idea or body of
Yeah.
work. Or Sasha Stone is for everything, is a humanity, and he's a bombastic bastard and he'll tell the truth. And so I called him and I left a long message. I was like, you need to come on my channel. We need to, really gotta be, help
Yeah. Hit it
people.
hard.
Like
Yeah.
snap out of this hypnotic, way they've been and recognize them. And so, he came on for that and we had a good laugh. And that'll have come out by the time you and I put ours out. But for
Great.
you, it's lovely that we bring in the science and the astrology and the symbolism and on those levels. And then we hit so many other touch points from our own life experience, but other things of interest as well. And I think that makes for a really grounded and solid conversation that you probably wouldn't expect, because we just go, with our ADD brains all over the place. Don't we?
Totally, totally. Well, I always love it, Danny. Lots of love to you. Thank you for having me on.
Lots of love to you too. I know you need to go. I'm just going to do a final message here regarding the conference, but love you and we'll see you soon, mate.
Bye.
Bye, sweetie. There he is, georghlewis.com. So, I wanted to say to you guys that we are 6 weeks away from the greatest event in disclosure on the planet. The greatest event for UFOs, for aliens, ET information, technology, suppressed technology, secret space programs, what they've done in the military behind everyone's back, what they've done in the government behind people's backs, how the whole Saturnian system is coming down. We are going to name the names. We are not going to hold back. Kathy O'Brien will be there. She was trained from a little baby as a sex tool. She was used by administrations in the American government in the terms of Bush and Clinton and Reagan. She will bring the information. She's not holding back. Elena Danan will be there. Elena Danan, who has actual contact, physical contact with ETs. The ETs come, they're in the audience every single year. The spacecraft come every year. They'll come and fly over the hotel. You're going to see them. Now, can we have some decent journalists turn up? You're not getting a press pass because we're outside in the park, but we would like for honest, good people to come and not repress the information. And by the way, those that did. It's so silly. We need to be sharing, everyone. We need to be sharing everything at this time. And we need to be all joining forces for the good, for the good of us all. This is the time that we're in. There are so many other speakers. We've got Daniel Brinkley. Daniel Brinkley, he's died 3 times at least. His experience of death and dying is absolutely unbelievable. And it's important information that helps with the science of consciousness and knowing that we don't really die. It's another breath to another part of the existence that we're in. And those of you that are grieving and in pain, his information is it's so uplifting. Nikki Allen is a wonderful, brilliant British psychic medium, former police detective who brings together the spiritual aspect of galactic spiritual informers. Praveen Mohan is coming from India. He's going to be sharing the mechanical structures in the Hindu temples. Who else do we have? It's just so many. Elena Danan, Tony Rodriguez. Oh my golly gosh. Tony Rodriguez, who was taken by the military, but he's been to Mars. He witnessed information and technology on Mars, and he's brought it back. He's brought it back to Earth to help educate our children much quicker and much faster as we do away with the rotten education systems and all the other systems that have been holding us back as humans. We are beautiful humans. This is our time. Do come to the conference. You can come in person, or you can live stream as well. I mean, live streaming if you can't get there because you live in a different country. But honestly, there's nothing like being there in person. The love frequency that we raise, it is so beautiful. Ajisic is so beautiful, as so many thousands now who've come to Ajisic have shared. GalacticSpiritualInformers.com is all you need. GalacticSpiritualInformers.com. It will take you to the website, take you to the tickets. When you get your ticket, you get emailed a link for the cheap hotel rooms. Do not book the link for the Le Meridian hotel rooms. They're much more expensive. We did you a discounted room on the Sheraton side and Le Meridian, that's where the conference is. So no hotel rooms there. The Sheraton is where you want to book. And you get free half price car parking there as well. Any questions, email the team. But for everything, you just go to galacticspiritualinformers.com. I'll be hosting. Can't wait to see you. Can't wait to have a little dance with you and raise that frequency, raise that energy, and for all of us to plug in to the universal love that belongs to us all. I'm Dani Henderson. I send so much love from my heart to yours at this time, and I'll see you soon.